Hey everyone, Ariel Adams here with the aBlogtoWatch Weekly Podcast. I am hosting today. Rick is in absentia. I am joined as always by David and Ripley from the aBlogtoWatch team. We are live right now.
Yes.
We don't know what that means, practically speaking, but we are live.
Is it 2008 for you, Ariel, or what?
Well, I've never been the live master. We've had live shows.
Oh, okay.
I haven't been the one that handles this. I haven't been the guy in charge. I don't know what's going on right now. So this may not be live at all, and I'm just talking to you guys, or there might be guests that might be made aware of this. We record, I don't know why, but we have this policy where we must record when no one but people in, I don't know, some part of the Middle East maybe, or in the middle of their day. Like
sounds about right. Yeah.
Like this is prime time if you live in the Indian subcontinent.
Or even that.
If you're for those in Hawaii, it's usually maybe after dinner before bed, so that could be convenient.
Yeah, that'd be great if like the bulk of our audience lived on islands.
Maybe they do. We'll never know.
You made a watch with a pineapple on it. That's like pretty Hawaiian.
Yeah. I want more island audience members. That's actually the goal. I just dream of luxury watches only being sold on islands. For me, that's really the exclusivity. It's hard to get because it's only sold in one store in one remote place. So I know Switzerland has done like the very high shops on the tops of, mountains and things like that. That's very Swiss. My vote is for luxury watch stores on highly remote islands.
Which island would you want these on?
Well, we could go to I don't know, the Caribbean. There's two different types of islands. There's like the ones that you have to be afraid of being attacked by, like, I don't know, wild animals and dogs. And the ones that are just like a bunch of, I don't know, reinsurance money, right? So you have like two different pendulum swings of like barbarity, like just no laws, no financial laws or no other laws.
Well, both work. Well, I mean, the no financial laws, that could be very attractive for certain watch companies.
Oh, this is not a new thing. I mean, I've been to some of these islands, and St. Bart's, for example, has a great reputation for some beautiful watch stores. Grand Cayman has a bunch of them as well. People come to drop off their money, buy a little something. Before the internet, the islands were where you could get the deals. It was like the islands and Hong Kong. If you wanted a watch deal before the internet, I don't know, maybe you guys remember other places people talked about. This is before our time, but it was like the Caribbean and Hong Kong.
Yeah. Now rich people are everywhere and they're driving the prices up.
What about North Sentinel Island? That's that island where there's that uncontacted tribe who inhabits it. What if the only thing there, they are on the
waiting list.
Okay, yeah, like there's just a booker.
It's a booker of discontinued new old stock watches that they don't know about.
They also have a CPO program.
Yeah, they're charging full price for stuff that should be 70 off. That's funny.
So we have a lot of travel coming up. We have a lot of travel coming up. There's a ton of things going on right now. So this is going to This is the beginning of the season where we won't be here all the time. But Rick doesn't have the excuse. He's not at a watch show. So like, what's his excuse?
He never clarifies where he's off to or what he's doing. He always
he's a spy.
Yeah, he always says someone else is a spy because they haven't said anything. And we have in the chat. We said exactly where we're going to be and why we're going to be there. But he just gives this cryptic message of he can't record. Then the internet's bum wherever he is, and next week is vague. And what is he doing? Because my understanding is that a farmer tends to the land. And the interesting thing about land is it doesn't move. It is a very stationary thing. So it's not like the land has shifted and he must tend to it elsewhere. Presumably, if he was doing his farmer business, he would be on the land that he tends to.
I don't think he'll tell us. I think he's trying to be secretive about it,
He's at the Panerai Service Center. Like, we all know that's probably exactly what it is.
Please, can I get my watch back?
I mean, I really want his watch to break so we'll get another one. I hate saying that, but
that's a terrible thing to say.
Well, he hosts a watch podcast without, wearing a lot of watches.
Without the proper watch. Yeah.
He has others too. What he really needs is this one to be taken from him temporarily, and then that would force him to come out of his comfort zone.
Yeah.
It's just a stroll in London. We should invite him to London, not show up and just, get him mugged, basically. Or have him go to Geneva. Apparently, Geneva is not safe anymore either. So,
is that so?
Is it like, how do they rob you, and what is the method of getaway? Because if it's during rush hour, I can't imagine they're getting too far, too fast.
On a scooter or something. They say, bonjour, give me a watch. And then they are out. Wait,
when they pay VAT or something on it when they...
and then they're immediately stopped by the French customs, and then they pay, I just stole it. Never mind, 20% VAT. And then you can go. Oh, Jesus.
David, are you looking forward to seeing the watches we're going to see in a couple of weeks? Like, there will be some new watches. I have no idea what will be new. Is there any sense that there's going to be exciting new things?
I can say as much as there's, quite a few exciting things from Bulgari coming up. I think, I can say that much without spoiling the whole thing.
And one weird one.
And one weird one. That's actually part of those that I mentioned that are cool. It depends on how you're looking at it. So yeah, weird and cool stuff from Bulgari is definitely to look forward to. Unexpected things.
I can't think of anything specific that I can't wait to see. There'll be some, I know that there'll be some really expensive watches for people that I may never meet and ask them why they bought it. The longer I do this, when I see these expensive watches, I want to ask the brand, could you just tell me who bought it? And so I understand. It's increasingly interesting for me to know who's purchasing these. I used to not care. I was like, oh, there's this fantasy person. Even in auctions, you have no idea. It's proxy. So I always want to know who these elaborate watches. Vacheron, Constantin sends us today this, we can't talk about it, but this new list of art watches. Okay, very nice stuff. But don't you want to know who's yep, I want that on my wrist?
Oh, 100%.
Yeah, I would love to.
And I wrote this article. I guess that's one of the first things we should talk about. Let me go over to it about watch sizes. And the name of the article is, according to Ariel, why watch case size preferences and options seem all over the place. And I wrote this in response to something the team said, where they're the topic of watch sizes is coming up again. It's very popular. People are arguing about it. So again, Ariel, you need to write about watch sizes. And I talk about a little bit of history about why watch case sizes have changed. Moral of the story is there isn't a correct watch case size. In fact, the problem is people focus on watch case size first. And what I say is it's a metric and it's not an endpoint. Find a watch you like and see if it looks good in terms of proportions. And then second, if it's comfortable on your wrist. In fact, it's almost as though I don't even want people to think about the watch case size. It's almost as though if it was an invisible metric, things might be a little bit better. It started as just helping people know if it fits on your wrist. And I guess to a degree it is helpful, but there's other measurements you need to know as well. So the moral of the story was, the best thing you can do in terms of case size is just ignore it. But I guess the point I wanted to make is, remember this era. David, you remember it. In the early 2000s, where all the expensive watches were almost as a rule really big and unwearable. And it's not just size. Yep. Just actually uncomfortable, actually made no sense. And for years, I've always wondered, they obviously had people buying them. What did they do with them? They couldn't wear them. Was it the equivalent of somebody wearing a headdress, a ceremonial hat that you clearly know is dumb? What did I hear? The Pope hat is very painful or something like that. I don't know. But it's were those watches the equivalent of the ceremonial hat, such as the Pope hat?
Yes.
So can you define the case size, what you're referring to, just so that the listeners understand?
48 millimeter Breitling for Bentley.
I mean even weirder, when Christophe Claret and Jean Dunand and Maître du Temps and basically everything around Christophe Claret, he ended up making all these things, now that I think about it. They were just little sculptures or models that somehow they put straps on. We're oh yeah, you could wear that. They were just all kinds of ridiculous sizes. The Gyro Tourbillon by Jaeger LeCoultre No. 2. Unwearably big.
One.
Unwearably
big.
And I'm saying that, right? It's unwearably big. It only is wearable if you have an entourage to protect you from walls.
Well, and maybe that's the point. If you're buying like a $2.3 million full sapphire Jacob & Co. Bugatti engine on your wrist, you probably do have an entourage. There's no door frame you're going near. You've got like 3 people on either side on you, plus your bodyguards at all times. And so you're shielded from all of that, and you can have that. And if it was like 27 millimeters, it'd be really hard to tell what it is. Now, when you see someone wearing a Astronomia or one of the Bugattis, you know exactly what it is because it's colossal and it's distinct. So for the expensive watches, I kind of understand that. You know, you don't want to buy like a $10 million car and have it look just like a Toyota Corolla. You want it to look crazy, loud, extroverted, like a Pagani, and that lets everyone know it's special.
A theory I have about why these watches, the big, crazy show-off watches, became less popular is because there became less places to wear it, right? People who have money ended up being alone, and meaning walking around alone, like traveling or just in a place where they wanted to be a little bit more discreet about what they had on their wrist. And these celebratory environments, which is wealthy people getting together in a safe environment, partying, balls, you know, these types of things where you could go to have show off things. You know, I met her at the ball, where you could go to have these, again, highly visible status watches. It's sort of like, where do you go to show off your like coach built car or your prize horse or your new yacht? Like there's only certain places you can go to show it off. And I think for a lot of watch people, that went away. Maybe the car shows that are popular now is the return of it. And what we actually get is people who I think go to these car shows now with more watch game. You know, early on you go to Pebble Beach and there's not a lot of watch game there. You know, Timexes and Rolexes. Now I think the watch game has gone up a little bit. But I think this shift towards smaller watches, less obvious wealth, you know, less strict focus on diamonds and gold and precious metals. I think a lot of this has to do with the fact that where people are wearing these have drastically changed. What do you guys think? David?
Yeah, I think it's shifting, certainly. And, you know, there was this major boom also on Instagram and elsewhere where people could show it off. I think that was even larger a venue than any car event, basically, or any ball or any, you know, high society thing or whatever you can think of, that, you know, people would just buy a new watch every month or every 2 weeks or whatever if they could afford it and just show it off online. And that was the joke. And the bigger it was, you know, of course, the more showy it would be on the pictures and all the rest of it. And that is more or less gone. I mean, I'm sure we all remember those, there's not enough quotation marks in this world, but those good old times when people would, you know, be just showing off their lifestyle and their large watches and all the rest of it. So that's one thing. And the other thing with regard to watch case sizes is complexity. I think, you know, some of these outrageous movements we all know simply would not have been possible in a smaller size. And the era allowed these watchmakers like Christophe Claret and literally several dozens of others to develop crazy movements and then try and sell them in 50 millimeter, 47, 48 millimeter, you know, saucers, basically, that you could strap to your wrist. So that's also part of it, I think. And we have sort of strayed away from that. And if we look at highly complicated movements these days, they are almost always done in a way that would allow for a 42, maximum 45 millimeter case size.
I want to add one more thing, but Ripley, do you have any thoughts on this topic?
Yeah, I think some of it is, it's a little bit less in vogue right now for those who are super wealthy to flash their wealth in quite the same way. And when they do, they might be flashing it, but it's not in the traditional flashy way. It might be this small vintage Cartier, which might be very, very expensive, but it might not visually look expensive in the same way that ridiculous iced out piece or something at 47 millimeters or more is. And then what it more alludes to is it's not visibly resplendent and obviously worth a lot of money just because it's gold and diamonds, but you more have to know what it is or understand why it's valuable to even recognize that it's 10 times more valuable than something else that looks incredibly similar. So you're still seeing a lot of very expensive pieces around, but the ones that you are seeing are less flashy per se than what they used to be when it was big, visually loud. Now it might be super small, but it's unless you really knew watches, it might not shout that it's expensive from across the room, or even in hand if it's a kind of unassuming Patek or something like that.
I realized something. Maybe I'm overblowing it, but I think that I'm maybe onto something. And David said this, and I think actually it might be the reverse. He said people like showing off big watches in pictures. I think people like showing off big watches in person. That's so you can see them better. In pictures, even small things look big, right? Maybe you know how we always comment that certain watches look like they were designed in CAD because the text is so tiny? Like it looks fine on the screen, but in person it looks small, right? I think the same thing's going on. People are doing this, we do this all the time. The macro shot of their phone right up to the watch on their wrist. You can wear like a 26 millimeter wide watch. It'd be legible. Our eyes can't see it, but the phone's lens, an inch away can. So I wonder if part of the small watch trend has to do with the fact that people are just seeing big pictures online. But if it was just in person, because when I see these things in person, I'm like, yeah, I don't think it looks as sexy in person as it does on Instagram.
Well, that's how I got my tag for the screaming deal of $180 on Craigslist. It's 35 millimeters, Tag Heuer Curium from, it's small, and on the bracelet's proportionally wide. The man who bought it from eBay is a giant dude, like big guy, needs 42 plus, regardless of the style of watch. Didn't look at the number, shows up. This is for children. Put it up on Craigslist, and now me and my children-sized wrist are happily wearing it. But that's, even if you knew the number, it might not tell the whole story. That watch wears small for its size, where if he picked up a NOMOS in that same 35 range, it might wear quite a bit bigger. So to your point, the number is almost, it's a reference point, but two watches with identical on-paper dimensions can wear drastically different depending on how the size is distributed throughout them, the proportions, and just, if it's a large dial to case ratio, it's going to wear bigger than if it's a tiny dial in a case. Is that slab-sided, it's going to wear bigger. So all of this affects the numbers. The numbers is just like how many gigabytes of storage a computer has. Well, that's one bit of metric, but that doesn't tell the entire story, let alone how it's going to actually be in real world use.
Before we talk about the next watch, I want to suggest that we come up with the replacement to the Wheel of Death. I think we have a community consensus. The villagers are armed with pickaxes and torches at this point.
What?
Oh yeah. Well, because we want the Wheel of Death to go away. We want a new wheel.
I've only heard you. I love the Wheel of Death.
I've had Confederates messaging me. I've seen the comments. It's not. Yeah, I mean, if it was just me, I would be like, I don't care what people think. I want it. I'm not the only one, and I think that we like segments. Ripley and I have been thinking about other things, but I think if I don't know what the new segment's going to be. Some type of opinion thing. I like when we did the little cards where we rated stuff. That was fine. But we need to, maybe the audience has some suggestions on segments.
Could be like model swap, like that show, like Wife Swap or whatever, where two brands, like what model from Rolex would you want to see AP take, and vice versa, or something like that.
Okay, I don't quite understand the parameters, but sure.
AP can't have the Royal Oak anymore. They haven't done anything with it. It's been far too long. It's been stagnant. We have to give it to someone else. Who would be a good brand to take the Royal Oak and say, you know what, let's breathe a sense of life into this.
Okay.
I like that.
As long as you host the segment.
Okay, I can host that. And it'd be like a trade. If they're going to get the Royal Oak, they have to give up something pretty good. So it can't just be some stinker of a brand with nothing to give. It's got to be something where AP would be. Is this kind
of like the fantasy sports thing where you're swapping players?
Yeah, or like the racial draft from the Chappelle Show. But yeah, kind of like that. We're swapping in a fanciful
I'll have to
manner.
watch that skit again to refamiliarize myself.
Yeah. Okay, yeah, please do that. But I'm thinking kind of like that would be the framework.
Okay. All right. So we're on it, everyone. We're thinking about it, and we'd love to hear your suggestions for segments and things like that. It's not for us. It's to save Rick's mental health, right? David, you reviewed the Nectere. Maybe it's not pronounced that way, but I'm going with Nectere. Okay. It does look like a little puddle on a table. So there is a liquidiness to it. What is this watch, and why does it look that way?
Well, I pronounce it Nectere, but maybe that's just me. Who knows? I don't know. Nectar sounds good to me as well.
Open to
It sounds better than puddle. Yeah, it's in Latin and it means to bind or fasten or to connect. They have done a number of these order from chaos watches before, and I guess they were quite successful. So they followed up with this golden version on it. What really intrigued me about this actually is not the shape, because the shape is sort of self-explanatory and also very subjective, whether you like it or not, and whether you like it on the wrist or not is also another question and another important matter. But rather the what they call ultra thin hand-wound movement from CIGA, which I've never seen before. I know it's been around for a little while, but this is the first time that I encountered it, and I was just curious to see what it was like to have a 3.2 millimeter thick hand-wound movement from China. So that's kind of cool. And then that really rendered this package complete to me, because, of course, again, as I say, the design is subjective. But if it had a quartz movement, I'd be like, well, it's just a design exercise. I don't really care too much. But now that it's a hand-wound mechanical that's shown off through this sort of triangular blob-like case back window, I thought this is quite something, that could possibly intrigue our fellow watch enthusiasts.
Does it remind you of a shelled sea mollusk, or am I the only one? It's got a limpet kind of quality to it.
Yeah,
like,
I can see
this clung
that.
to a rock somewhere.
No, I could. It looks
pool.
like someone's kind of partially shucked it, though. The tops. Oh, I like that case back. That's kind of cool.
Mm-hmm.
So, David, how was the movement? You said you were primarily interested and curious about it. How did you feel about that element of the watch?
Yeah, it was what I was really, well, first of all, of course, because it being a hand wound, I just, I despise watches that are hand wound, and then, you're just shaving off the skin of your wrist or your fingers, every time you have to wind it. That's terrible. This one, although it appears to have a really small crown, it just sticks out just enough above this odd 4 tier or 5, if you count the sapphire crystal as well, bezel, that it's really comfortable to wind and to operate. And it was just, it worked perfectly fine. It has a very short 39-hour power reserve, which really isn't much. But what can you expect at this price point? If you want thinness and cheap, you cannot expect high performance, at least not for another couple of years.
Now, let's talk about the category that this watch is contained in. And I think the watch that probably invented this category was the Cartier Crash. Later, more recently, Sylvain Berneron with the Mirage, I think it's called, really brought this type of asymmetric, supposed to be balanced design into the foreground in a modern sense. I think these cases being asymmetric is definitely a hallmark, though I don't know that they strictly have to be asymmetric. Like, what do we call this? The misshapen watch category? I'm just trying to understand, how do we define these types of watches?
It's a really good question. I would call it like melted or molten or something like that, because that's what it looks like. It reminds me a little bit of Dali's paintings, for example, where the perseverance of memory and stuff like that. It sort of has that sort of quality to it, as though it was a triangular watch that just melted under the sun somehow.
So here's another question, and maybe it's a silly distinction, but are these supposed to be more jewelry watches or art watches? And does it matter?
I'd call it dress.
Dress watches. Interesting. What about legibility? Did you find it easy to tell the time?
Yeah, I think, it was surprisingly good in terms of the main hands, but somehow this crystal created all kinds of, not reflections, but it's just made the dial really dark, which is a really odd sensation. But somehow the dial was overall rather, in high contrast against the shiny hands. So yeah, you can locate the hands, but it takes a bit of time getting used to, because you're not going to see the hour markers that well. But overall, no real struggle, really. I never understand this when people say like, oh, you cannot read the time. Yes, you can. Most watches that people, label as illegible, most of them you can get used to in half a day or 2 hours or whatever. And then you can tell. The question is whether or not I can locate the hands, which direction they are pointing. If there's enough contrast between the hands and the backdrop, I don't need hour markers or whatever else to be able to tell the time. Most of the time, if the hands are correctly sized and, all these basics. But even on a busy dial, as long as there's contrast, it's great. And if even you can have like a day date, for example, which is my favorite example, where you have all 12-hour markers, but you have a shiny crystal, or used to have a shiny crystal, shiny dial, and shiny hands, and then it can be basically impossible to tell, where they are pointing at or where they are even located. Here, as you can see, it's not that difficult at all.
So it looks like the brand has just this one model. We know that the Chinese movement makers obviously regularly sell watches to third parties. Seems interesting. Curious what they do next. Not sure if it's going to be like just building on this one model. We've been reviewing a lot of Chinese watch brands, and what I think is interesting is some of them make like one watch, and others have so many different models that have like nothing to do with one another, and we have no idea which way they'll go.
That's what I expect from Nectere. That the next one will have nothing to do with this. I mean, there might be some iterations to this, of course, who knows. It looks so much better on the leather strap. Wow. This is fun on the mesh bracelet, but on the leather strap, it's way classier. Maybe that's why I was drawn to these regular steel or unplated steel versions. The gold mesh bracelet is really quite loud, and the watch head already is a bit not too large, but it's, it attracts a lot of attraction. So yeah, I really like it on the leather strap. They didn't ship the leather strap with the review sample, so I couldn't check it out. But otherwise, I think I would have loved it on that.
Yeah, I agree. I think a lot of these asymmetric, atypically shaped watches, however you want to call them, do better on a strap than a bracelet. Like if you look at the Crash, they do make bracelets for it, but that shape is so striking. To create a bracelet that fully fits that case, it's basically impossible, and it doesn't do anything for the case. It looks best when it's this simple black stripe and you have this ridiculous looking blob of a case on it, and I think that's true for this. It being based on a triangle makes it very sharp. Like that upper left corner looks so large and loud. Having any more competing metal around it just sort of detracts from it, and I think when it's on a strap, you get the case shape is emphasized a lot more. And I can't imagine that bracelet is anything to write home about either. It looks like the standard sort of, the same mesh bracelet you find on most watches.
Yeah, it was okay. I mean, it wasn't too bad. The clasp I didn't like because the clasp just, it was really difficult to do it up because it was not one of these where you have a clasp here and then a metal bit here, but rather the whole thing was in one piece, and you would just have to slide this bit, the long part, through it, and then just, latch onto it. And that was just basically an invitation for a dropped watch. And I thought, wow, that's sketchy. But otherwise, yeah, I didn't mind it too much. It was not pulling my hair. It felt good to the touch. It was not one of these rough Milanese bracelets. It was actually as good as they get at this price point. So yeah, I didn't mind it too much. It's just somehow too much with the overall design, I thought.
Price for the Nectere, as I'm calling it, Eclipse, on the bracelet, $880. Looks like it's probably a bit under $800 on the strap. Very limited watches. Most of these are limited to 100 or 150 pieces, it looks like. This one was 150.
Individually numbered, up to 100. So, yeah.
Pretty cool stuff. Final thing I'll say about this is I'm going to say to Nectere, if you want the ultimate fun giveaway item, just create a pair of sunglasses that takes this as lenses. Just make a little bridge there and some arms.
That's cool.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if we could get away with it. Might be a bit feminine, but that'd be kind of funny.
That sounds fun.
I think we could get away with them. I think the key would be to have it. If you inverted one, it would look kind of cat eye, but if you had them both kind of like wonky, both going the same way, like you just put two watches side by side. I think it's
mirror them, just have them be all like weird and avant-garde.
Exactly.
Now you're scaring the children.
Oh, I think that's just weird enough to work.
All right, maybe we'll leave it. We'll leave it to the good people at Nectere. NOMOS. This is a sponsored post about the Tangente Neomatik 38. I don't even know if this is the smaller or larger version of whatever is coming. That's a funny thing with NOMOS. You can never tell. Like, are they going up in size at 38 or are they going down? I think what I like about these is they done something that I have liked in watches for a long time, which is remove a central date hand. So they create a disc instead of a hand for a peripheral date. This is always a design challenge. Every single time there's a dial with a date, everyone's like, oh my God, that ugly date window, get rid of it. No one can be happy where it is. You have a date dial. That has its own issues. You have the peripheral date. You have this stupid long hand just cutting through most of the dial like all the time. So I guess my question is this solution, and again, they're not the only brand that's done a peripheral date in this way, but it's quite rare. Is this the best of both worlds?
I think it's quite elegant. It's an interesting way to do it that keeps the minimalism, adds a pop of color. It feels very NOMOS-y. These are the smaller ones, by the way. When they first started this update format, they created this watch in a 41 millimeter format. Then this year in Geneva, they announced a 38 millimeter version, which this is, and they also have gold versions as well if you want it in solid gold. But I like it. It's unobtrusive. It's easy to read. But more importantly, I think it works very much with NOMOS's design language. There's certain brands that I don't think would be able to pull off this type of complication or this implementation of a date display. But for NOMOS, the minimalism, the Bauhaus, the color, I think it's a good vehicle to sort of lean into the things they do best.
Is this watch smaller or bigger than before? Because I don't know that
smaller, 38 versus 41.
Okay. I knew it was one of the two.
And I don't even know if those are the real sizes. Like they call a lot of these things like 41 or 38, but it'll often be point something. But yes, this is smaller by a few millimeters.
Now, I've heard a lot of people lately say something that NOMOS may not want us to talk about, but I think it's important. And that is NOMOS watch prices, while still comparatively low, for sure. You want to compare it to the other brands around them, definitely low, but have gone up in price over the years. The Neomatik 38 watch, there's two versions of it, I guess. I guess you could get it with or without a display case back. That's interesting. I haven't seen that before.
They do that. No, they do that a lot on them now. If you can get them with or without a display case back for even on like the club campuses.
Okay, so that's $4,300 without it. $4,690 with it. That seems like a lot of money for, I guess, a round piece of sapphire crystal. It still feels like a very competent timepiece, but does it still have the magic that was associated with NOMOS when the prices were $2,000 to $3,000?
I don't know. I mean, everyone's been raising or increasing their prices. So, what can you say? At least it's thin. It's more in-house than it used to be. I've visited NOMOS a couple times over the years, and I've been super impressed by their operation in glass. So it's not like this is a watch that was slapped together from random stuff that they could just find at a supplier. It's they genuinely, my impression is that they do put their heart and soul into these, not just from a design perspective and a presentation, but also from a watchmaking and engineering and manufacturing perspective. So kudos to NOMOS for that. I wouldn't say that it's overpriced or it's too ambitious. Yes, it's expensive, but it's actually made there most of the time. Most of the things in a NOMOS watch, I mean, of course, you have to do your own research, but from what I saw, they have genuinely and greatly expanded their operation in Glasuta.
And it's a similar story with Seiko. Everyone says Seiko's gotten a lot more expensive, and they have, but they haven't abandoned the previous price point. They're just making more models at a higher price point. If you still want a club campus, entry level is exactly where it was. Maybe a couple $100 more than it used to be a number of years ago, but still under $2,000. They still, if you want I think it's the Alpha caliber, their traditional manually wound one, they still make those watches and they're quite a bit less expensive, like 2/3, half the price of these Neomatik models. So they still make them in the same way Seiko still has the Seiko 5 and some entry-level Prospex models or Presage models. But just like Seiko's increasingly making more watches at a higher price point while still catering to the other one. I think a similar story is with NOMOS. They have the top end of NOMOS now is quite a bit higher than it was 10 years ago, but it's not like you can't get a watch for under $2,000 anymore. So have they gotten more expensive? No, not really. Not more than anyone else. They just have more offerings in that higher price tier.
In-house movement known
That's
as the DUW 6101, 50 hours of power reserve. Love that's automatic. Not in love with the fact that it's 3 hertz, but probably wouldn't make too much of a difference in real-world wearing. What I want to say about this is one final compliment is the particular way they have the peripheral date. It's kind of like their version of the tachymeter scale, only useful. The tachymeter scale exists just to sort of create a little bit of visual interest on the periphery of dials or on a bezel. There's no other reason for it. And it really works. Like, you'll see the same watch with and without the scale. You're like, damn, it is better with the scale. So adding a little bit of complexity and busyness at the outer edge actually makes the internal dial feel a little bit nicer and more approachable, and rather than just sort of empty. I think this dial would look a lot less interesting without this. And I really like the slightly innovative way they approach on the date, where the specific numeral is kind of flanked by 2 red strips. It's maybe not entirely novel. I haven't seen it before, but I think that's what's clever about it, is the addition of the date and this element around the periphery aesthetically adds a lot that wouldn't be here. So I think I adore this watch in a lot of ways. I think it's great. The 38 might be a bit small for me, but I've worn other 38s that feel fine, and there is the bigger model. So I don't know. I think it's a pretty cool watch, actually.
It also reminds me of the Sky Dweller in a way, with the little apertures. But others have done it before as well, before the Sky Dweller. Yeah, I just seem to recall some of these apertures. I think it's a very elegant way of doing this. Having the 2 displays next to each other show up in red at the same time would just drive me nuts. I know it flanks the correct date this way, but for some reason it's just strange to me.
It's definitely strange, but I think that's what is actually great about it. Is it just looks a little bit different, and sometimes that's sort of all you need. Speaking of things that look a little bit different, let's talk about, I haven't seen this myself. This is would you want to call this a matte rose gold tone version of the CIGA Design Hunter. Apparently, so cool. This one is called Vintage, which there's so many problems with the use of vintage around the design of this watch and the brand. Just so many problems, but it's got it's called the Hunter Vintage in here. I've reviewed a previous version of this watch. Cutting to the chase about this, even though this brand does have some tourbillons and some multi-$1,000 watches, this watch with a bespoke automatic movement that you don't see anywhere else, everything custom, no off-the-shelf parts from what I can tell, and maybe the price went up a little, $600. So I remember these started like $400 in kind of the naked version when they first came out a few years ago. $599. And I've seen these, and they're not crappy. It's easy to like write it off, because a lot of watches are even less expensive and maybe look more complicated. We're this whole world of like Alibaba, Richard Mille ripoffs, and they look good in pictures, but in person they stink. Here we have this particular version of the watch photographed on Sean's wrist, and again, I don't know, for the money, this is hard to beat if you like the design.
Yeah, I have one of these. Oh, go ahead, Ripley.
I was going to say, I think this is one of the areas where Chinese manufacturers can really shine. If you were to make this same watch at the same target price point and use one of the known quantity off-the-shelf movements from Miyota, Seiko, what have you, it's going to just look like you shoved a round movement in a square case, regardless of what skeletonized version you did. What you really do need is to have some bespoke pieces in there to kind of make it feel like a cohesive object. And that's very expensive to do, in Switzerland. That's why a bespoke skeletonized movement costs a lot. But if you're looking for something that scratches this itch in a mid 3-figure price point, your money's going to go a lot further towards finding something that satisfies that with a brand like CIGA than it would if you're like, well, let me find something with like a Seiko NH35 base in it. It's just not going to look good for this type of watch.
Yeah, I have one of these, like not this one, but an earlier CIGA design from a couple of years back. You can find my review on aBlogtoWatch, of course. That had a black rubber strap, a black, not carbon, but carbon-like case, and a golden movement. And at the time, I was, doing some travel for work, and I had it on. And what I would do is a test, but we discussed this on the podcast at the time. I would do this test and walk up to people and just show the watch, not like this, but like let them actually take a look at it, and have them guess the price of or the value of the watch. And the lowest estimate on that CIGA Design, which was probably $200, $250, maybe $300, I don't know, not that much more, was $7,700. That was the lowest. And some people even guess like it's hundreds of thousands of dollars on the CIGA Design. Kid you not. And not people of the street or whatever who have no idea about watches, but people in the industry, which is, also something I guess we could think about. But still, it made the impression of a very, very expensive watch. Which is strange to me.
Yeah. What's the right way for European brands, or call it true or luxury brands in terms of price point, to respond to something like this? Because I think it's naive for them to ignore it. Mm-hmm. Hopefully it pushes them to do something better. But what do you think? Does a Richard Mille need to respond to this? Does a Custos need to respond to this? Does an Urwerk need to respond to this? Does this, put them at notice that they need to do better? Or is this just sort of a fun thing that would not exist for those other watches? I think what's important to say is if it wasn't for those popular, super expensive watches, very few people would care about this like we care about as enthusiasts. Most people wouldn't be like, oh, that's cool. This has a psychological impact of looking like something more expensive because there is something like it more expensive.
Yeah, that's fair.
So how should the higher end brands respond, if at all?
I think they will ignore this. They have ignored much greater issues and problems than this for a long time. What I think they should do is
the Frank Muller way.
Or the Swiss way in general. When was the last time you heard? The last time that they have addressed something was the Caliber 1887. That's what I recall, like there being a public address of an issue.
And
was
that's the last time they ever will.
They're like, oh, we are not doing this again. We'll just stay quiet like Apple and wait for things to blow over and just not respond unless we are literally forced to do that. And even if so, then we will just put a disclaimer on a page that you can never find on our website. And that's about it.
Actually, I think the real response is the fact that the European watch shows for many, many years have been very hostile to Asian brands showing there. It's kind of like the default status. No, you cannot show up. You have this weird exception where Grand Seiko took years to sort of become accepted by, Swiss and Watches and Wonders. And then Credor, who I think was accepted, just had no idea what to do there and made a fool of themselves with a silly little booth that
really did.
No one could access.
Sorry, Credor, but you did make a fool of yourselves at Watches and Wonders last time. But I think they're just there as not a scapegoat, but what's the right word? When they can just point their fingers at them, the Swiss, they can say
the tokenation.
That is exactly. They are the token. It's Tolkien, of course. If you remember that South Park episode. Yeah. Anyway, so they are literally the tokens of Palexpo. They can point their fingers at, like, you see, the Japanese are here, so I guess we're in the clear, huh? No, you're not. A bunch of them are still missing big time. I genuinely enjoyed it. And I thought it added so much to the authenticity and just the enjoyment. And of course, also the relevance of Baselworld that they had, Seiko and Citizen and Casio. Sadly upstairs, far away from the Swiss, of course, but still, at least they were there. And so I hope that they will be able to return sometime. But now, and you guys correct me if I'm wrong, I get the sensation that now the Japanese major brands like Casio and Citizen probably are like, oh, we're not even going, even if you wanted us to go now, because you've
not at those prices.
Well, that too. I mean, yeah, that's exclusionary price.
That's the response, is exclusion. But before we move on to an actual Swiss brand, can someone please tell me why this is called the Vintage? I have failed to see anything here that is vintagey in any way, shape, or form.
Because it's skeletonized. Probably,
is it the color? Is it the color? That because when we saw these, I think briefly when we met with the brand in Vegas, and there's
color.
Yeah, the color of the metal. Like there's some of these. Okay, no, that one's great. So some of these have more of like a kind of muted, washed out finish. So the gold one isn't like gold. It's kind of like more of a tempered, slightly brassy gold.
We used to call that a bad coating.
Yep.
I think it's intentional on these because they also have like a brighter gold one. So maybe it has to do with that finish. But in terms of the physical lines of this watch, this is about as far from vintage as you can get.
That's funny. I think this genuinely reminds me of the olden days of our time show where you guys would call these robot turds, which they totally were.
I'm just looking at it's called the brown gold. It's got the signature green tipped hands that is about as unhistoric as could be. I mean, look, I think the point is I routinely bring up when words have officially lost their meaning. The word vintage,
yes,
whatever it used to mean, is now officially dead in the watch industry. So if you use the word, it's sort of like it cancels each other out. You know, it's like a double negative. It's just gone. So you see the word vintage, it's just a placeholder. It means
that's fine.
It means
they had
nothing.
no idea what to say. It's CIGA Design skeleton automatic watch hunter vintage. I mean, it's just a word salad anyway.
It was, they could have picked vintage or extreme. So they chose the other one that didn't mean
hunter
anything.
Or skeleton. Skeleton hunter would have been fun, but no. I don't think they're looking at the meaning of words.
Game.
Yeah. And a watch to go with it.
I want to go skeleton hunting, you know? You can't use a bow and arrow because it just goes right through them.
Oh, skeleton hunting, I'm thinking that just sounds like grave robbing or something like that.
No, I'm thinking full on like animated dead characters, you know? But even though they're walking dead, you still have to be practical about, I need a club or a mace of some type, you know? My sharp weapon isn't going to do too much against them.
There were some amazing games. There was Blood was the name. I think it was from the late 90s, early 2000s. That has a similar vibe to this. Look it up. It's fun. I think, is this watch really as reflective as it shows up on the first picture or not as much?
Does it look that reflective?
It does, yeah.
I mean, it is a Tudor crystal. And, you know, they have that kind of box style and then there's a little dome on there. They're legible, but they're still, you know. I wouldn't say reflectivity is a problem. Most of the time, it kind of looks like that.
Is this gray or black in real life?
We should tell people who are just listening what we're talking about. Otherwise, they just, you know.
The Tudor Black Bay all black. Ceramic on a bracelet. Well, not the blackest one, because didn't they do this with a darker black dial on a rubber strap? This is the bracelet one with a gray dial. So you get more black.
No, the rubber strap had white colored hour markers. This is the blackest they've gone.
Yeah, you're right. This is,
it's never been more Black Bay than this. This is the blackest of Black Bays.
The blackest bay.
But is it gray in the metal or no? Because sometimes
the dial,
ceramic just gets gray, not black.
No. The ceramic is black. A
J12.
Well, the funny thing you mentioned is when I talk about this, I notice more and more things similar between a Chanel J12 and this. And my suspicion is it's the exact same supplier for the case and bracelet.
Okay.
So yes.
You see, I got that impression as well. That's interesting. Yeah.
But remember, they have the same movements as well.
Bum, bum, bum.
So same movement, same case style. Dial's different, I'm sure, but the case and bracelet manufacturer. Well, look, we're getting too far into it. Let me just explain what this watch is for the poor people that have no context. This is the Tudor Black Bay ceramic. It is the full bracelet version. So for 2026, the Black Bay ceramic was an existing model. It had at least 2 executions. There was the original that Ripley mentioned, which was the first time they introduced their master chronometer certified movements, which is a whole other story. That's why I remember that one, because I love that they did that. The ultimate FU to Omega. And I was like, okay, it's great. Ceramic case. It's been done. And again, standard, nice looking. Then they had the blue one, which was the Visa blue. And that was related to the racing world and that driver. I forget. Ripley, you probably know his name, that they were the sponsor of.
Well,
whatever, it was Racing Bulls. It was a team,
Bulls
right?
team, and it was after they dropped Yuki, so they had a tumultuous season in terms of who were the drivers on that team.
Oh gosh,
they changed right before Watches and Wonders, which I'm sure probably threw a monkey wrench in terms of the ad materials they wanted to use.
So Tudor now comes out with the 3rd version, I believe, of the Black Bay ceramic, and now. Really what's new is the bracelet. Yes, it's a black on black dial, so it has shades of gray. It's very hip and stylish. This is a fashion approach. I think black on black looks cool. Not everyone agrees. There's no like tool watch heritage. Yes, you have like, I don't know, stealthy, this and that. You could come up with some tactical reason for it. I don't know. But this is just a cool looking watch. But it's this black matching ceramic bracelet, 3-link style bracelet, which is the news to me. And it costs about $2,000 more than your standard Black Bay in steel on the matching steel bracelet. But it is, ironically, the same year, Chanel also decided to reintroduce 2 new men's J12s. And those cost, I want to say like $4,000 to $5,000 more than this, right? For, again, basically the same movement. Yeah, the design's different. Chanel's beautiful watch, but at about $7,700. So it's about $5,400, I want to say, for the standard Black Bay in steel. Yeah, $7,725. Full ceramic case, beautiful bracelet, exceptional quality, master chronometer movement that every time you look at it says F you to Omega. I mean, I don't know. I think that's cool.
The Chanel is not a master chronometer though, right? So it costs more, but it's not.
Just COSC.
Yeah. This would look so great in white. Wow. Can you imagine? White case.
Oh, the white dial?
Well, no, like white ceramic, like the J12s in white, that crisp, glossy white ceramic would look amazing.
Can you imagine Tudor doing that? They would not do that. They would have to start wearing shorts at work before they would do that.
Does the J12 have a better clasp than this?
Is there a micro adjust?
Different clasp. Okay, so I actually love this clasp, but it's not clear why. I took a few pictures of it. Okay, so this center piece right here in the clasp does not move. It is stuck to it, okay? Why do I like this clasp so much? It is a butterfly style. There's a half link. I took it off. Why do I like it? Because you can close either side first. It's not one of those ones that has like the little lip that you have to close one. And inevitably, I always do it wrong. And I smash down on that little thing, the little lip. I don't know why it has to be one way. This one, and it is complicated. You can tell it's totally bespoke. This isn't standard parts. It's similar to other ones, but it's very, very different. And you can close either side first. And I swear it's a game changer. It sounds so little, but it makes such a difference. I want to cry. I love it.
I mean,
I'm happy for you, Ariel.
I've got some that you can close one side before the other. They neither has a fixed piece in the middle. They just kind of go down.
But
like
are they ceramic or are they bendy metal? Because I bet they're bendy metal.
So they've made this clasp out of ceramic. All the parts are ceramic.
Well, this is steel, obviously.
Okay, but it's still steel. They should have just put on a better clasp. I don't know. Like
micro adjust.
Yeah, like well done to them for.
Who are they? Formex?
I mean, Formex would happily make them a clasp for this. I just mean, like, if you're gonna go through all the trouble of re-engineering a clasp, re-engineer a different clasp. Like, don't. This is like the saying, like, you can polish a turd, but you're gonna end up with just a smaller, shiny turd. Like this, it's better than the butterfly, but it's still a butterfly. This should have been a different style of clasp. And we know Tudor can make a great clasp. The Pelagos clasp, like the full-size one, work of art.
The T-fit.
Well, the T-fit is also great. I'm talking about full-size Pelagos, that spring-loaded, lovely contraption. This just feels like they got all the way down to the bottom of the wrist and then said, it's 4 p.m. on Friday. Let's just wrap it up.
Who said micro adjust? I didn't hear anyone say that. Oh, well, I guess it goes into production now. Wonk, wonk. This totally should have a freaking micro adjust. All of these watches should have a micro adjust, for the love of God. Seriously.
Okay.
How difficult is it?
I find it amusing that I go from being really impressed with it. You guys don't want to hear anything about it. Whatever I like, you're like, not good enough.
I appreciate the fact that I can choose whichever side I close first. But, this is basically like a medieval invention where you can close something from either side. This would have been impressive in 1350. Like, ooh, wow.
I've only reviewed one ceramic bracelet that had a micro adjust. It is the Formex one, and it's because they make that stuff. Yes, Tudor could have done it as well. I'm trying to compare it to the other ceramic bracelets out there that I've tried. The Royal Oak that has ceramic one, obviously the Chanel. There's a few others. There's that Versace watch. There's a bunch of little ones over the years that I've reviewed. And I guess compared to those, this was particularly nice. The tolerances were really nice in the bracelet. This worked really well. It was comfortable. I just thought it was a really nice looking bracelet. And
all of those are true.
Going back to the rest of the watch, The problem with the Black Bay is it's exceptionally thick for no seemingly good reason. It's like 13.6 millimeters thick or something like that. It's only water resistant to 200 meters. So it's not like it can claim to be like 5,000 meters water resistant. And in black, it's the same thickness, but it looks thinner because black is slimming. You guys can't disagree with that.
That's true.
No, I would agree with that. I think the watch itself, complete hit. And if this was a clasp we'd seen before, I'd say, well, fair play. They just grabbed something they already had and threw it on there. But it's just like going through the trouble of painting your walls the exact same color they were. It's like, I guess
that's the Rolex way.
Yes. It's the same but different. It's not white, it's eggshell.
I think the funny thing is when people don't realize that when we meet with Rolex, multiple times in the conversation, we make a joke about something being the Rolex way. And it's a good punchline every single time because it always seemingly applies.
Because it's true. That's a cool looking watch. It has to be said. It's kind of cool, even though the bracelet looks like it's not put together well. I mean, I can see the little links and screws and whatever, or the pins between the. How is that possible?
All I'm saying is it feels good. It's not rattly at all. It's a good, solid feeling bracelet. One of the things I also want to say is the standard Black Bay. One reason I'm not as into it as I could be, aluminum bezel insert. It had to have a full ceramic watch to have a ceramic bezel insert.
Thank God.
But
wouldn't that have been hilarious? Like, oh, it's so vintage. We put aluminum in there just for fun because I think it's hip. That would have been such a poser thing to do.
Yeah, amusing.
Thank God.
Really, really fantastic watch. We're going to end a little bit early today because I have another podcast to do. And I hope the live audience enjoyed this. I think there were some of you. I see here some of you commented. So give us feedback on this, I guess, in the comments so we know what to do differently next time. Tell us what you thought about the thumbnail. Big very curious about that.
I've not seen it. I dare not.
So next week, I will be back. I think that will be our last show, probably prior to Watches and Wonders. Maybe you guys will be on one more. I think I'll be traveling then. I'm going to be going to Time at Win in Las Vegas this weekend to determine whatever that's about. The only thing people say to me is it should be called Time to Win. I'm like, no, it's not. It's not the gambling part of the Wynn Hotel. It's the watches part. That's why it's Time at Wynn. But I'll be headed to that. Okay. No one knows what it is, but I'll find out.
What's happening?
Is there any relation to the Time to things?
I love it. This is the problem. There's so many watch shows, but there's not enough watch terms anymore. So we've run out of things to call the shows, So we're all confused. Is that part of that one thing that shares more the same words, just a different order?
I prefer this to these completely arbitrary nicknames to watches like the Batgirl and the Bruce Wayne and those really drive me up the wall. It's just so forced. It's just lame. Let's call it
Wait. You want to give this watch a nickname?
No.
No, David's saying that he would prefer the names of the watch shows, as convoluted as they are, to the fact that everyone needs to nickname. Not all people have nicknames. Not all watches have to have nicknames. The watch has to be existing for 25 years before we can decide what its real nickname is.
Okay, I came up with a nickname for this watch though. Maybe I don't like it.
Okay.
Black on Black Bay.
At least there's no threat of people taking this on. I think there's no chance. It just doesn't really roll off the tongue that well, Ariel. What
do you mean? How many? Look, you have to say the word black multiple times in there, right? Because Black Bay is part of the name. It's also black ceramic. It also has a black ceramic bracelet. It would end up being like the Tudor Black Bay ceramic, full black ceramic bracelet, which would be insane. So which I just go with black on Black Bay.
Well, they do like to take a jab at Omega. Maybe if you added black in there three more times, it could do what Omega does with Master and Seamaster.
Mm-hmm. Master Coaxial, Master Chronometer, Seamaster. Yeah, that's true. They
Omega,
really like this
Seamaster, Master
Master Bay. Black Master Bay. We're gonna go with black. Masturbate.
just masturbate. That's what.
Hey, this watch needs a name. We admit we can't just call it the M7941A1ACNU-00001. That's what
they are
Tudor
taking a
wants us to call.
jab at Nomega with that reference number. That's a disaster.
No, there's no like
Masturbate is
slashes in
hysterical.
there or dots or anything like that. Yes, the masturbate. Okay. Well, more on that later. Thank you.
I'm glad I brought this up.
Thank you for everyone for listening to this very experimental episode of the Blog to Watch Weekly podcast. Thank you, Ripley, David, for joining us. Rick, we know you're out there. We'll see you guys next time.
Stay safe with our Wi-Fi.
Bye, everyone.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.